Hi, English 101 students. I hope you are all doing well and having a strong, almost end to the spring semester. So today I want to help you all with reading Professor Motalib's comments when she is providing you with feedback to your paper and how to read those comments and use those comments as a way to revise your essay. Because I know that we're still allowed to revise essays 1 and 2, and I just want to assist you in revising those essays, and I encourage more of you to maybe schedule a Zoom meeting with me, or maybe just coming to see me in the Writing Center. Like I said, my hours are 1 to 3 p.m. on the second floor of the LRC, which is the library, and the Writing Center, which is where I'm actually at right now recording this video. So I'm using a sample paper that Professor Motalib provided me with, and what she wanted me to go over is just to show that how to take some of these comments that she is making and how to use them to revise your essay. So for example, this first page is just a title page, and you can always check your title page by using Purdue OWL. But what Professor Motalib left for this student is to just check, because there was an error with the date. So for example, the student forgot to include the date of the month, so she just pointed out that you can add this, and with the title, the use of technology in child development, Professor Motalib said that there were minor errors with formatting, but you can also use Purdue OWL to make sure that your title page is correct. Now, a lot of the feedback that you can get could be positive. So for example, Professor Motalib said, "You have a great hook here with this quote." But also, she provided some constructive feedback so that the student can make their essay stronger. So instead of just saying the author came in, maybe giving a little context about who the author is. Before the quote, the signal phrase is just missing a verb. For example, it should be something along the lines of came in said. So you want to include that verb in the signal phrase and then use the quote. So another helpful feedback that Professor Motalib gave is that also after the quote, you should write 1 or 2 sentences that describes the quote and your interpretation of it. Try to make it transition to the second sentence of this paragraph. So this feedback will be very useful for you because after a quote, you should always describe the quote in a few sentences and give your interpretation of the quote. Otherwise, we call this kind of a hit and run quote, where you're just leaving the quote and not leaving much explanation. So this would be a good time to go back to your quotes and make sure that you have at least a few sentences describing the interpretation of this quote. So like I said, Professor Motalib will give you positive feedback. For example, she left a very positive comment for the student saying great usage of source. But she does see that there is something that the student can improve. For example, I see a comma splice here. I think a semicolon would be better than a comma here. So the great thing is that she gave the student the exact grammar point that the student should be using here. Instead of a comma, maybe just use a semicolon. So the student can change this and make their paper stronger just by a simple grammatical change. So another positive feedback that Professor Motalib gave is that this is a very strong thesis. So now the student knows, okay, my thesis is strong. So maybe let's go back to the body paragraphs and see if everything that I'm saying aligns with my thesis, so that the student has something positive to work towards. As you can see, Professor Motalib also gives a lot of feedback about grammar, so replace the semicolon with a comma. So these are just very simple things that we can go back to our paper and change very quickly. And if there's anything with issues of using acronyms, if you're using acronyms in your paper, the acronyms will go inside of the parentheses. So for example, this person used the acronyms outside of the parentheses, so they would just have to change that the acronyms go inside. After spending a little time reading some of this feedback, I can see that Many of the comments are ways that you can make your paper stronger, and she offers many good suggestions. For example, she highlights that this student, that she sees a really good transitional expression with her sentence, but to make the sentence more active. So just providing ways to make your paper just stronger in general. For example, the student says the O'Kane website, but it doesn't really give, the student doesn't give a lot of information about if it was a news article, a website, or a newspaper article. So what Professor Muttalib left a comment is just to say, maybe a sentence saying the news article written by O'Kane, just to make sure that it's more specific. I think you will continue to see a balance between ways that you could simply change your paper, but also you'll see another side of positive reinforcement and feedback. For example, like words such as strong critical thinking and also strong thesis, but also suggestions such as avoiding the word you in your paper. So you can go back and you can change these words if you are using them, and also ways that you could develop your paragraphs, ways that you could be less vague. Everyone's feedback is going to be different with different comments, different criticism. But I think that in the future, if you are struggling with reading through your feedback and you do have questions, the best thing to do would maybe be to schedule an office hour or appointment with me so that I can help clarify some of the feedback and suggestions, and we can go through it and we can work together to make sure that your essay is where you want it to be. I really enjoyed helping you with this today, and I look forward to seeing you more in the future. Have a great day.